Welcome back, my friends. Shabbat Shalom to you. Today we're talking about the 13th month. Is it in the Bible? Is it biblical? What is going on? And let me change my mic over here. How are we doing today? Hopefully you guys are having some good rest, relaxation, and let's get back to Torah today. Let's get back. It's been a little bit. We're going to talk about the timeline of Ezekiel. We're going to talk about some cool stuff that has to do with feast days, Passover, all that good stuff. But really, let me pull something up real quick to make sure we are on the same page. If you have not checked this out already, I updated all of the feast days that are coming up for 5860. Make sure you check them out. Overcomebabylon.com. You can go to the biblical calendar section. You can check out, everything that's coming up for this new Hebrew year. A lot of people ask me questions about where I get that number from. Please read Bible Prophecy Secrets, and you won't have any questions about the number 5860 versus the Jewish stuff of 57. I forget whatever year they're on right now, mainstream Judaism. But you have all these feast days here. If you want to understand the feast days, how to keep God's holy times holy, with the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, there's a lot of information there for you in Bible Prophecy Secrets, chapter 12. But why? Again, why do we go through all this trouble, right? We're under grace, right? We're not under that Pascal law the mainstream world of religion likes to tell us. But Jesus said, our master said right here, John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. Some manuscripts say, if you love me, you will be keeping my commandments. You'll be found keeping, I believe is what it says. You will keep. It's just what we do. That's what we do. We follow the God of the Bible the way that he said, and then that's what we do. Do not think that he came to destroy the law or the prophets. He did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Matthew 5:18 says, assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away. Those are two witnesses. They're still here. Heaven and earth are still here, and one yod and one little dot of the Hebrew vowels and letters will by no means pass away from the law until it is all fulfilled. Whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does and teaches them shall be called great. So we're seeking greatness in the kingdom of heaven today, guys. That's what this is all about. Moreover, more importantly also, he said, until it is fulfilled, nothing's going to be done away with. But everybody says, oh, well, Jesus came in the first century, fulfilled everything. He fulfilled everything in the law. Well, here's one particular place amongst many places that Christ just didn't fulfill. He just didn't do it, okay? It's just the way it is. Isaiah is considered law. It's considered Torah, which the word in Hebrew for Torah just means instructions, okay? And Isaiah 66:22 says, for as the new heavens and new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, says Jehovah, so shall your descendants and your name remain. So, by the way, there's no new heavens and new earth yet. Law is not done away with. It shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, from one Shabbat, one Sabbath to another, all flesh shall come to worship before me, says Jehovah. All flesh. It doesn't say Jews only, right? Jews will come to worship before me. No, right? But everybody from one new moon to another, one Sabbath to another, and that's where we are right now. Right? We're still in this paradigm, this time period where God's law is to be upheld exactly as it is written from Moses to the prophets, to the writings, to the New Testament. That's why we do what we do. I'm not trying to be Jewish, right? We're not trying to be Jewish here. Nobody's trying to be Jewish. In fact, Christ shows up in the first century and he has a opposition, the constant nagging of the religious priest class was from rabbinical Judaism. The Judaizers, people practicing Judaism were the ones that gave our master, the word made flesh, the most problems. So, of course, I don't know about you, but I'm not practicing any Judaism around here. I just want to follow Christ the way that he said. If you love me, keep my commandments, he said. I just realized I have something on my... Anyway, I don't know what's on my shoulder. I was just holding one of my chicks. I have some baby ducklings, but anyways. Welcome back, guys. I see you in the comments. Shabbat Shalom from Arizona. Appreciate you being here. A lot of stuff coming up. Yeah, I'm not really going to talk about that today, but keep your eyes open for tomorrow. Got a lot of crazy stuff happening. Oh, where do we start with this one? I have so much stuff pulled up already. Let's just take a look at Isaiah 66. Again, we're not trying to be Jewish, okay? We're just trying to follow the master the way he said. Eventually, all flesh, not Jews, Jews shall come to worship before me. That's not what it says, but like that's what mainstream Christianity wants to tell us that the Bible says for whatever reason, because they just want to say that God's law is done away with, but it's for all flesh, literally anyone who's Adamic, right? All the seed of Adam, all humankind, one race. There's no races. There's no races. Okay, guys, that's a psyop. That's division, dividing and conquering. There's no races. There's one human race. All the human race shall come to worship before me from, a Sabbath and a new moon. So what is that word new moon? Let's start with that because there's a new moon coming up this weekend, this Sunday, actually. Not tonight, but Sunday. Have you guys seen whether or not there's been a new moon report? Has there been a new moon report from anybody? Let me check some of our people over there in Israel. Actually, let me just go to renewedmoon.com. Let me check them, renewedmoon.com. I'll do this live with you guys real quick. Let me just check over there. What's going on with new moons? Renewedmoon.com. I checked them. Yeah, nothing yet. No reports. We're looking for Sunday evening, of course, which is exactly what I mentioned in the Telegram down below. So nothing from those guys over there at Renewed Moon. Let's go back to Isaiah 66. Because I don't think there's any reports. It's going to be super hard to see it tonight for Israel and everybody else. I mean, you're looking at 1%. I don't think they've ever seen a new moon on a 1% visibility. So let's take a look at, put user in timeout here. Yeah, no more negativity in the comments, guys. Keep it real. Okay, from one new moon to another. It says Chodesh here with this kind of sloppy. That's what I don't like about Blue Letter Bible. It's kind of sloppy here. If you just look at the actual Masoretic, you can go through this line by line, and it says Vehaya Midei has a little yod right there, and then Chodesh Bechadso, or that's a shin, Bechadsho with the chayin. So Chodesh Bechadsho. I don't know where the accent marks. That's my only struggle when I read Hebrews. I don't know where the accent marks are. Umidei. Shabbat, be Shabbato, and then there's a few other words here. But the idea here within the first few lines in the Masoretic text is that it's telling us new moon to new moon is how it's kind of translated in the English. Let's just go back up here. One new moon to another, one Shabbat to another. In the Hebrew, it's actually it's like repeating it. It says Chodesh, Bechad Sho, Umedei Shabbat. Be Shabbato, right? So it's using the words twice. One new moon to new moon to new moon, Shabbat to Shabbat. So it's repeating it. Obviously, in the English, it's lost in translation slightly because it just says one to another, which is accurate. But I do want to point the fact that that root word Chodesh is repeated right there. You see that? Can you see the highlight? Yes, you can. The highlight there on the screen, Chodesh, Chodesh. It's repeated. Let's take a look at that root word, Chodesh. Again, this is why we look for new moons to start the beginning of every month, okay? That's what God's saying. New moon to new moon, month to month, Sabbath to Sabbath, Friday night to Saturday night is a Sabbath, okay? If you're new to the channel, welcome. That's very, I've talked about that many times, but Chodesh is something that people really struggle with. They're like, well, it just means head of the month. But if you so it's translated as month, new moon, monthly. But again, if you just dig a little deeper, you'll understand that the Bible is a lunar calendar. It's a lunar-based calendar. It's just the way it is. Because the root word for Chodesh, you look at Chadash, again, it's that Chayin, so it's that guttural sort of K sound. Chayin, Chadash. You look at this, and it means to renew. Okay, and so that's why, look, I just have to call it how I see it. Conjunction moon people, I don't understand them. How is a black moon, the renewal of the moon, a black moon? So if you're going from conjunction to conjunction, which is a black moon, a dark moon, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because new moon, which is how it's translated in English, which is amazing, that's very accurate. New moon, renewed moon, it means that you can actually see the sliver of the crescent moon in the sky, which is what I've depicted here in today's thumbnail, right? Chodesh to Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh, new moons, head of the year, Rosh Hashanah, You have the new moon. That's how we look for a renewal. We don't look for a dark moon or a conjunction moon. Again, if you're new to the channel or if this is all kind of going over your head at this moment, please check out the playlist. There's a playlist I have on the channel here. It's called God's Holy Calendar Unlocked. Make sure you check that out. It'll be tremendously beneficial. Actually, this is going to be another part of that series because although I mentioned it in Bible Prophecy Secrets, there's a link down below to get it for free, by the way. You should totally grab it for free, download it for free. I've never talked about the 13th month, why there's sometimes 13 months. And after today, this is going to be so easy for you to understand. Seriously, very, very easy. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. You really just go to Leviticus 23. You'll see right away. Okay, these are the feasts of the Jews. Is that what it says? No. Leviticus 23, verse 1. And Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, let me exit Telegram. It's giving me announcements, and it's really annoying me. Speak to the children of Israel. Sorry, guys. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the feasts of the Jews. Is that what it says? Wait a minute. That's what I was taught in church. Those are Jewish. That's for Jews. That's for Talmudic rabbinical Judaism. And the funny thing is about that false teaching is that the rabbinical Judaic cults, they don't even follow the feasts according to the spirit of the law because they're not born again. Only those who have received the Spirit of God can actually follow God with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, born again. And you can only become born again if you accept Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, as your Messiah. So the rabbinic, to call these the feasts of the Jews is wrong on so many levels. It's so wrong. It's so wrong, but that's what people do in mainstream pulpits. It's really sad. The feasts of Jehovah, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These are my feasts. His Moedim, his Chag, his feasts. 6 days. So the first one, by the way, is Sabbath, which we are observing now. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Shabbat Shalom. Sabbath peace to you. Okay. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Shabbat of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of Jehovah in all your dwellings. Then here's where we start talking about, okay, there's all the weekly Sabbaths every single week, but then let's talk about Passover. These are the feasts of Jehovah. Obviously, the devil likes to come in and say it's just for one particular group of people called Jews. Okay, that's what the devil does. He always twists the word of God and says, nope, that's not for you. Holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed times on the 14th day of the first month at twilight, is Jehovah's Passover. The 15th day of the same month is a feast of unleavened bread to Jehovah. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Okay, before we go any further, right? There's already a key word here, first month. Well, how do we figure out where the first month is? This, again, it's sad, but it's just the way it is. There's so much confusion, division, fighting, bickering, and just like I said, division over following God's calendar. And I understand, like, my goal is to, and I exhort you also, our goal should be to always just have compassion, grace, love towards people that are actually trying, right? They're getting away from the Gregorian solar calendar. They're getting away from the sun worship of Pope Gregory the 13th, right? We're getting away from sun worship. We're trying, people are at least trying to go back. So if anyone's trying, I give them a round of applause. Okay. So, but there is, though, a lot of confusion and division over when we begin the year. And again, it's okay. And I know, like, even though I'll present this in granular detail as best I can, the 13th month concept of Ezekiel, there's a particular place in Ezekiel that makes it really clear. I know people are still going to disagree, and that's fine. As long as we can, like, still respect one another and stuff like that, okay? I do have my own stance, though, however, because when you study this with me, I think you're going to come to some conclusions that are really solid. It's okay. So the first month, this is what it says in Deuteronomy 16, verse 1. It's just one of the places you could find the word Abib in different places, but it says, observe the month of Abib and keep Passover to Jehovah your God. For in the month of Abib, Jehovah your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Abib, that's the first month. That's, again, if we just go back to Leviticus, that's when we're the first month. This Passover, the first month is Abib. That's really straightforward, right? So when do we figure out when Abib is? Well, let's take a look at the word, what Abib means. In the Masoretic, it is in fact Abib. I know the mainstream Judaism and Jews call it Aviv, and I have called it Aviv many times. I kind of want to start going back to the Masoretic, though, with those baits, two baits. Aleph, bait, yod, bait, and it's Abib. Abib. And I know it says green ears of corn, okay, in the KJV, But the correct understanding is young barley ears, young barley, green barley. Very, very easy, very, very simple. The greening of the crop, the growing of a green Abib, barley. Exodus and Passover, again, they say March or April. It could be as early as February, however, okay? So don't let the man-made entries of the Strong's Concordance or different websites confuse you. Yes, it can be as early as April. Tel Abib, for example, just to show you an example of Abib being used in a different context. Tel Abib is a place actually where Ezekiel is taken captive in Babylon, and there's a place called Tel Abib, and this also means mound of green growth. Again, Abib is just reminding us. Remember, Abib is green. It's green growth. This is from Becca Bitterman's Facebook group. I recommend following her work. She does an excellent job. She lives in Israel, and she reports what the land is witnessing to God's people all over the world, so we can all follow God's appointed times according to the ancient path, how they've been doing it from antiquity. We always need Abib, barley, in order to begin the year. And so, in case you didn't know, this is a place called Horns of Chitin, literally wheat horns, in Israel, that Becca took a photo of. And she's just the reason I'm pointing this out is because I really like this photo. Don't be fooled by, movies and Hollywood and stuff. The land of Israel is very green, and there is barley growing there in February, March, and April. A lot of cereal grasses, lentils, oats, all kinds of things grow there. And we're not really told about that. And especially when you watch some of the, some of those Hollywood movies, or, different, the Chosen, or different movies, different TV shows or whatever, they always show a really dusty, dry Middle East. But the land of Israel is very green. Okay. It is very, very green. So again, just don't let those Hollywood renditions and those doctrines and teachings of men fool you into not being able to see what the Bible's proclaiming to us. Okay. That's why I take the time to show you these types of things. Leviticus 23, let's go back to it. So we understand first month, it's green. There's a lot of green going on in the first month. Very, very straightforward, right? And on the 15th day of the month, Feast of Unleavened Bread, there's a holy convocation. You shall offer an offering made by fire for 7 days of unleavened bread. And then the seventh day, there is another Sabbath. But here's where we need to focus the energy and attention right here. Leviticus 23, verse 9, Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you and reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of first fruits of your harvest to the priest." I've talked about this before in the playlist, that there is a wave sheaf day. He shall wave the sheaf before Jehovah to be accepted on your behalf. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. So what is the day after Sabbath? Well, on our modern calendars, we understand that to be Sunday. So there's always what's called a wave sheaf Sunday, ceremonial waving of a first fruits offering. First fruits offering, you wave the sheaf, and there's a grain offering that also accompanies this ceremonial waving, along with a male lamb. And it says specifically, you shall eat neither bread nor parched grain nor fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your God. So no bread, no parched grain, nor fresh grain. Okay. So, but this is where it gets fascinating. Okay. There's obviously more feast stuff inside of Leviticus, but when you offer first fruits, this is how it works. And this is how we know the timing. If you offer a grain offering of your first fruits to Jehovah, you shall offer the grain offering of your first fruits, green heads of grain roasted on the fire, grain beaten from full heads. There are specific instructions on how to offer first fruits. Notice that it does not say golden heads of grain. It doesn't say dry, really old, crusty heads of grain. In modern combines and how modern agriculture is, what they'll do is they'll uniformly plant a crop, fertilize it, promote its growth to be as uniform as possible. And if farmers, check this out, if farmers don't get a uniform crop, this in the United States, Western countries, really all over the world these days, if they don't get a uniform crop by a certain harvest date, what they will do is oftentimes they will expedite the drying of the grain by spraying glyphosate or something similar to glyphosate not necessarily glyphosate, but a drying agent of some kind of herbicide. But I know glyphosate is used specifically for oats. They'll spray the field, spray, and that way, because it's a desiccant, meaning it dries the crop, farmers will do everything possible to get a uniform crop on specific dates in order to have harvesting that is at the maximum efficiency, productivity, and profit on a particular day. And not only that, they can schedule everything in advance. They can get their processing done. They can get everything to the mill, wherever they're going to sell the grain. They can coordinate and schedule it perfectly like clockwork as best they can by doing artificial things to the field, such as using desiccants like glyphosate. That's very popular with oats. It could be used for cereal grasses as well, although people will argue with me on that. But it absolutely can. Glyphosate can and is used for desiccant, as a desiccant for wheat and barley and these types of things. And it'll cause uniform drying and uniform harvesting as a result. So that's how artificial our world is. And that's the problem. You and I, as God's people, we are completely disconnected from the land. Most of us have never farmed a field. I have. I did organic farming back in 2019, 20. Very hard work. Super hard work. I was 2018 and 19, actually. But these days, I have sheep and goats. I work with the soil. Absolutely, 100%. But and I'm learning so much every single year. We are tremendously disconnected from the land. But obviously, in the time of the Bible, that was their world. That's all they knew. All they knew was stars in the night sky, studying astronomy, looking for new moons, looking at the ground, looking for barley, looking for agricultural signs, knowing the breeding seasons of their animals, knowing all the different rotations of crops, knowing cycles. This is just agricultural cycles were a way of life. They always have been. We've become disconnected in the past 100 years. It's very new. It's a very new phenomenon. It's a blessing and a curse, though, isn't it? As we have become disconnected because of modernization, industrialization, we've also become hyper-connected because of technology to information. So even though we lost touch of the old paths, the ancient way of God's people, we've also at the same time through technology become hyper-connected to information that is allowing us to return to the ancient paths, the ancient path, singular, of the Most High God Elohim. And so really that's my channel is dedicated to that. That's what everything's dedicated to here. And so when we understand what a grain offering looks like, green heads of grain, we understand that we're looking for a first fruits offering. We're looking for a first fruits offering that is young, tender, green Abib, which is why I know there's a lot of confusion about this. I'll mention it briefly because it's not really the focus of today. A lot of camps, Deborah's Date Tree, and really most ministries kind of follow her example. They practice Karaite Judaism. The Deborah Gordon and her ministry, it's a Karaite Judaism ministry, but she's interfaith. So she's like, I'm just telling you the calendar stuff, but a lot of people are very much influenced by her teachings. And so they are looking for entire fields of harvestable barley, like we would normally think of in these days, modern combines and stuff like that. But when you're looking for first fruits, it has to be the first tender green ears of barley. And again, I just want to point out to you guys once again, because people have questions about this all the time, check out other videos in the playlist, but also check out Becca Bitterman's work. She understands that we just look for the first fruits, not, best fruits, later fruits, golden fruits, but we're looking for green. We're looking for green at the moment that it comes up. Okay, so with that said, here's where this ties into what we're talking about today. If we don't find green ears of barley at the correct time, then that means that we actually have to wait. So again, think about the simplicity of God's calendar. Seriously, he said, "My yoke is easy, my burden is light," and he meant it. Think about how simple this is. We look for a new moon in the night sky. Okay, is there a new moon yet? I can't see it. There might be clouds, there might be dust. I have no idea. But if I cannot see it, then I won't declare it. But because we know in a lunar cycle there are only 29.53 ... days per month, we know that we're definitely looking in the 29th day for a new moon. And if we don't see it, the 29th, the 30th, by default, boom, it's new moon day, because there cannot ever be 31 days in a month. The calendar that we have today, the Gregorian, and before that it was the Julian calendars of the Catholic Church, They're a fraud. They're a lie. Do they work? Yeah, they work. They work for timekeeping. They're something that we're able to use to communicate with people and communicate dates and coordinate activity and be productive as a society. But they're a fraud when it comes to the truth of God's word. They're a fraud and a counterfeit when it comes to following the Most High God of the Bible. Most people by default don't realize, but they're following Pope Gregory and they're following the Catholic Church as their headship and their authority, because what did God say? He said, these are my feasts. Remember? But the Catholic Church and everybody else saying, no. This is your calendar over here. And then you got to follow all these pagan holidays like Ishtar. The Ashtoreths and Baals is what you got to worship, see? And so it's all fraudulent. It's all paganism. We're trying to get back to the ancient path for real. Okay, we're not here to play games. We're not here to play footsie. We're here to go all the way and learn from God, take his yoke upon us for real, and not deceive ourselves into thinking we might be following or whatever. But no, we're actually doing our 100% best. And we're not going to be perfect. But after today, you're going to understand, okay, we look for a new moon in the night sky. We look for barley to begin the first month. But if there is no first month, with barley present properly for the first fruits offering of wave sheaf day to obey God's commandments, then we wait. So after showing you what I'm going to show you today, then you're going to understand why it's necessary to add a 13th month to the calendar as needed, on an as needed basis. Because you just can't start the year without barley. But here's the funny thing. This works like clockwork every single year. If by the 12th month there is no barley, boom, we declare a 13th month, and there always will be barley. There always is. We just don't know how early it arrives. We don't know how early the rains. We don't know how much rain. We don't know what God is going to orchestrate in the land. This calendar requires faith. What most people like to do is they like to pre-calculate things to make their lives easier. That's why the Julian and Gregorian calendars were so popular, and they still are to this day. That's why so many methods of timekeeping, including the Hillel II Judaism calendar, which is totally different from what I'm showing you guys today. Totally different from what I'm showing you here. The Hillel II calendar of Judaism, mainstream Judaism, is also disconnected because they want to pre-calculate their calendar based off of conjunction moons. That's how the Hillel II Judaism calendar works. They pre-calculate all of their months, and so that's why they can tell you, oh yeah, Passover is going to be this year on this day and this time. But that's not how it works for real with the Bible. That's not how it works. You can't pre-calculate the calendar. You have to actually wait, be watching like a watchman. See how that works? That's why God says, watch for my return. Wait, practice the things that I've shown you. Because by faith, we understand where the calendar works every year, but we have to actually be instructed and we have to understand what we're looking for. We don't just go off of the blind traditions of men that honestly have led us all astray. And now we're finally starting to get back to the understanding, oh, okay, there's a 12-month year, and sometimes there's a 13-month year. So I don't know if you saw Becca Bitterman's latest post. I reposted in the Telegram, but there's a good chance we will be adding a 13th month to this current year of 58-59, which is great because I've already calculated and shown you here what it could look like with the 13th month year. I gave you all the dates for all the feast days. I've even included the Numbers chapter 9 Passover in case you missed the first Passover, the real Passover in the correct time. There's a provision for a duplicate Passover for those who miss it. There is no provision for a duplicate feast of Pentecost or any other feasts. So make sure, that you understand what I'm showing you here. It's not hard. It just takes a little bit of diligence on the front end. And once you get it, you get it. It's very, very fun. Very rewarding. You'll be fascinated by all the connections you'll make in Scripture after understanding the feast days properly. So what we need to talk about now is the fact that Ezekiel chapters 1 through 8. Ezekiel chapters 1 through 8 actually give us a timeline to understand that, yes, 13-month years is something that's been happening since antiquity. This is how God's people kept track of time. Okay, I'm also going to be putting together what I'm going to show you right now. I'm also going to show you why the solar calendars and equinoxes and these types of things. Well, I'm going to show you evidence, and you can decide. You can decide, okay, how the calendar works. You're the judge. You guys be the judge. Seriously, I just want to equip you with the the roadmap to kind of get to the treasure, and then you can get the treasure for yourself. And you need it. It needs to be your own conviction. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. So Ezekiel was a prophet that was actually commissioned in captivity. He was commissioned in captivity. By the time Ezekiel gets called in 592 BC, which is what I'm showing you on screen, he was actually in Babylon. It tells you right there, chapter 1, in by the river Kibar, I believe it is, Kedar. We can look at it in a moment. He is commissioned. Nebuchadnezzar besieges Jerusalem in 597. So 5 years prior, Nebuchadnezzar besieges Jerusalem and takes King Jehoiakim. Remember, the king of Judah. Israel had already been conquered for almost 200 years at this point. Or not 200, that's too many years, but you know what I'm saying, over 100 years, they've already been conquered. So remember, there's two kingdoms, two houses. Nebuchadnezzar has successfully besieged the south, Judah, which is where we get the modern word Jew, but there's more than just Jews in God's word. As far as people groups of prophecy, there's Israelites, house of Israel. But Nebuchadnezzar besieges the Jews. 10,000 men are brought into captivity, and Ezekiel's one of them. 597 BC. 5 years later, he's commissioned. Now, here's what we're going to be focusing on like a laser beam. From 592 to 590, there's something that happens in Ezekiel's life that is extremely important for us to be paying attention to, okay? And I actually, again, these dates are approximations. I believe I made a mistake by saying it's 590 BC. I believe it's only 591 because only 14 months go by. I'm going to show you that. So don't get too tripped up. I put this together as fast as I could. I'm always doing this. Seriously, I don't know. I need to protect myself from putting together so many timelines. You guys know I love timelines, but this one, I believe there's a mistake there with 590 BC. But everything else I think is legit. 585, Ezekiel hears about the fall of Jerusalem. Ezekiel sees the visions over, many years later. But from 592 to 591, this is where we actually get the understanding that there's a 13th month in God's calendar. So are you excited to check this out with me? I'm excited. Here, let's take a look at it. This is the timeline that we're given, and we're going to look at these scriptures together. Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 1 through 2 say this. Now it came to pass in the 13th year, the 30th year, okay? In the 4th month, focus on the words I have highlighted here in yellow. In the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Kibar, that the heavens were open, and I saw visions of God on the 5th day of the month, which was in the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity. Again, let's go back to it. So 5 years after the captivity of 597, he's there. Remember, the southern kingdom isn't totally conquered yet. Zedekiah rebels later, and we understand all these things from Kings, okay? Kings gives us all the details, but Nebuchadnezzar besieges Judah, but they're not fully conquered yet. So this is the first wave of captivity. And what we're being told here is the 4th month, 5th day of the month, which is the 5th year of the captivity. We can pin that to a certain date BC because we know those years from history. They're very much historically established as and verifiable, okay? Ezekiel 3:15, then I came to the captives at Tel Abib, who dwelt by the river Kibar, and I sat where they sat and remained there astonished among them 7 days. So from chapters 1 through 3, Ezekiel's commissioned. He gets visions and words to tell the house of Israel. And after he's done receiving a vision, it's complete. Then he's sitting there and he's actually astonished for 7 days. And then once those 7 days are done, he receives a word, an instruction that he is actually going to be bound by ropes inside of his house, is what it says. Specifically, I put in quotation marks, spiritual ropes, because it's not clear if it's literal physical ropes or spiritual ropes, but God literally ties him up, okay, to fulfill the word of chapter 4 specifically, that he's going to lie on his right side for 390 days, 390 days, and then for 40 days on his, okay, so 390 days on his left side and 40 days on his right side. I got that mixed up. And then after that, in Ezekiel chapter 8, we're told that it's the 6th, all of a sudden, right? It's the 6th year, the 6th month, the 5th day of the month. And so this happens in the Bible a few times, but with Ezekiel, it's really crystal clear. We get a really clear timeline of his life. And it's actually within this context that we understand that God's calendar works a certain way because we're given such specific numbers to work with. And what I'm going to show you, it's pretty straightforward, but you're going to have to verify it for yourself too, because I have a funny feeling it might go over your head a little bit, okay? But don't let it. It's pretty simple. We're looking at a period of 437 days total. From Ezekiel chapter 1 to Ezekiel chapter 8, we have a period of 437 days total. All we have to do is reconcile this. All we have to do is reconcile this. But before we do, okay, because we really only care about the 430 days. But I know that probably doesn't make sense to you right now, so let's just go over there and read it. Let's just go over there and read it, okay? Now, before we look at chapter 4, which is where we get the numbers and the fact that Ezekiel lays on his left side and his right side, I want to show you what I was talking about so you can kind of understand the fact that he did fulfill this, okay? He didn't, he absolutely did fulfill this. He didn't, how should I say? He didn't skip out on it and cut the days short. He fulfilled all of those days. Because look at what it says here. Let me exit this. Right here, it says, "You son of man, they will put ropes on you and bind you with them so you cannot go out among them. I will make your tongue cling to the roof of your mouth so that you shall be mute and not be one to rebuke them for their rebellious house. But when I speak with you, I will open your mouth and you shall say to them, thus says the Lord God. He who has ears, let him hear, and he who refuses, let him refuse for their rebellious house." Remember, chapters are very artificial sometimes, and this is a clear case because immediately he says, "You also, son of man." It's like, okay, you're going to be bound with ropes. You're not even going to speak. Your tongue is going to cling to the roof of your mouth because you're about to fulfill this verse. This is the next thing you're going to do. Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 1. "Take a clay tablet and lay it before you and portray on it Jerusalem," the city, Jerusalem. "Lay siege against it, build a siege wall against it, and heap up a mound against it, set camps against it also, and place battering rams against it all around. Moreover, take for yourself an iron plate and set it as an iron wall between you and the city. Set your face against it, and it shall be besieged, and you shall lay siege against it. This will be a sign to the house of Israel. Also, lie also on your left side and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it. According to the number of days that you lie on it, you shall bear their iniquity. For I have laid on you the years of their iniquity, according to the number of days, 390 days. So you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. And when you have completed them, lie again on your right side. Then you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Judah for 40 days. I have laid on you a day for each year. Therefore you shall set your face toward the siege of Jerusalem. Your arm shall be uncovered, and you shall prophesy against it. And remember what I told you about the ropes, right? Ezekiel 4:8. Surely I will restrain you with those spiritual ropes, remember? So you cannot turn from one side to the other until you have ended the days of your siege. So this is a kind of a classic example. I don't know if you felt like this in your walk with God, but this is a classic example of you're just along for the ride situation. I mean, think about it. Ezekiel is commissioned, and he's not even given a choice in the situation. Don't get me wrong. We all have free will. But his will is so in line with the good shepherd. His will is so lined up with God's will that God restrains him, and it's no big deal for Ezekiel. He's not kicking and screaming. He fulfills his role as a faithful prophet. This is the perfect intersection between God's will and man's will being completely in line with one another, okay? But sometimes in our walk with God, we're just along for the ride, guys. I can tell you situations in my life where things are being orchestrated, and I just realized, wow, I'm just along for the ride. I'm not even in. We're not sovereign. We're not in control. But sometimes we make a lot of decisions. It seems like God's not really necessarily involved with the granular details. But I can tell you, in my personal life, wow, I was just along for the ride. God has orchestrated a ton of things in my life. So this is a clear example of that. Okay, he restrains Ezekiel for 400 days, over 400 days, 430 to be exact, so that you cannot turn from one side to another until you have ended the days of your siege. Also this is why it's important for us to get the context, because Ezekiel was commanded to get himself food and provisions, water, fuel for his fire, to cook his bread. And this is where you get the Ezekiel bread. But Ezekiel 4:9 says, Also take for yourself wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt, and put them into one vessel, and make bread of them for yourself. During the number of days that you lie on your side, 390 days you shall eat it. And your food which you eat shall be by weight, 20 shekels a day. From time to time you shall eat it. You shall also drink water by measure, 1/6 of a hin. From time to time you shall drink. And you shall eat it as barley cakes, and bake it using the fuel of human waste in their sight. Then Jehovah said, so shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the nations. Again, I don't like this translation of this word Gentiles. It just means nations. I believe that word carries with it a lot of baggage and division that's not necessary. So I disagree with all English translators that use that word Gentiles. It should just say nations. But the children of Israel will eat their defiled bread among the nations where I will drive them. So I said, Lord God, indeed, I have never defiled myself from my youth until now. I've never eaten what died of itself or what was torn by beasts, nor has abominable flesh ever come into my mouth. Then he said to me, see, I'm giving you cow dung instead of human waste, and you shall prepare your bread over it. So that was a little test, right? It was only for illustrative purposes only. He would have basically not liked to, but he's basically saying it should be human waste, but all right, it's going to be cow dung instead. Moreover, he said to me, Son of man, surely I will cut off the supply of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with anxiety, and shall drink water by measure and with dread, that they may lack bread and water and be dismayed with one another and waste away because of their iniquity. Sin, lawlessness, Torahlessness, breaking God's law, breaking his commandments. That's what iniquity is. Look it up. If you're not 100% on that, God doesn't change, same yesterday, today, and forever. So the same way he felt about sin back then is the same way he feels about sin right now, which is why America and the West are in some big time trouble. Okay, so when we're looking at this 430-day period of time, right? The main thing to know is he was supposed to lay on his side, but he also, realistically, we have to give Ezekiel just a little bit of time to get provisions for himself. He needed to get enough bread to eat and water and dung for provisions, right? So we have to look at this realistically. So by the time that we get to Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 1, in the 6th year, in the 6th month of the 5th day, boom, it all fits, right? So what we're going to do together is we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at it from a couple of different angles. But the only way this is ever going to make sense is if you take the diligence to actually count using a calendar. I'm going to show you how to do that in a simple way. But basically what the Bible is telling us is that this is from the 5th year of captivity to the 6th year. Okay, that's a year. We're all clear on that, right? 1 year. But then we're going from the 4th month, the 5th day of the 4th month, to the 6th day of the 6th month, 5th day of the 6th month. So day 5, 4th month to the 6th month. We could say, generally speaking, this is a period of time of about a year and 2 months if we're looking at 12-month periods of time, or it's a year and 1 month if we're looking at a 13-month year and then an extra month left over. We're going to look at which one's going to make more sense for us in a moment. Again, the way that you do this, there's a website. Let me pull it up real quick. Do I have it pulled up? Yes, I do. Before I show you what I have on screen, there's a place called TorahCalendar.com. It's just a resource that you could use to kind of figure this out and actually do the counting properly. So I took the year. If you can see it, it's very small. Let me zoom in. 592 BC. I've already selected that year, and I've already selected in the Hebrew. You have options when you go to TorahCalendar.com. You have different ways to go ahead and do the data entry. I picked the 4th month of the year, which is what we were told. Let me go back. 4th month, and we were looking at the 5th day, remember? So let me go back. 4th month, 5th day, and you can just start counting from here. And what's cool is it gives you the Gregorian also, and you can kind of like piecemeal it together and put it together. What's also cool is they show you the Rosh Chodeshes, the new moons for those time periods based off of calculations. Of course, we don't know if they were 100% visible in Jerusalem and so forth, or Israel, not Jerusalem, but Israel. But you can use this to kind of count. But obviously, I'm going to expedite the process for you, but you can fact check me. Please do. Okay. So again, Ezekiel receives the instructions to prepare enough bread, water, and provisions on the 12th day of the 4th month, because all you do is you add 7 days to the day that he began to be astonished for 7 days, and then at the end of the 7th day, boom. Then all of a sudden he receives additional instructions, which was to prophesy about a siege. Okay, so for the next 430 days from the 12th day of the 4th month, that's where we're going to start counting. We have to start counting from this point onward. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at different theories of calendars, because there's different theories on how this works, right? There's all these different theories. Okay, do we follow a 360-day calendar? And there's only 12 months in a year, right? Some people say this. There's different labels and ideas attached to this kind of calendar theory. But generally speaking, if you just break this down mathematically, okay, 360 days, 12 months in a year, it's 30 days per month standard. We're going to look at this together. In fact, let's just do it now. There's a website I'm going to direct your attention to. I first found it on citedmoon.com years ago, and this helped tremendously. This ministry put together, it's called ponderscripture.org. Okay, ponderscripture.org. Go check their stuff out for this particular topic, because there's a particular article. You can go to the articles section of their website, and there's this one called the 13th month. Right, let me see. This isn't the tab I want. Well, that's what it looks like. Okay, you can kind of see, okay, this is what it looks like. 13th month. And the authors here are Larry and June Akeson. Hopefully I'm saying their name right. And they present all the different theories of the calendar for us and do the counting. And so rather than because I could kind of recreate and do reinvent the wheel. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Okay. But I'm showing you how you can do it with torahcalendar.com. So the first theory we're going to look at is basically a 30 days per month theory. The theory that, like I said, it has different labels. Some people call it the solar calendar theory. I don't know, because the Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar too, but let's just take a look at it. So if we're in the 4th month, right? And remember what I said, the 12th day of the 4th month is where we actually start counting. Now, yes, we need to give Ezekiel a little bit of time to prepare the provisions, but let's just hold that idea aside for a moment. Let's just start counting the 430 days from day 12 of the 4th month, which in Babylonian is Tammuz. I don't use those names. I just call it the 4th, 5th, 6th. You guys know, you've seen my newsletters, my emails. I don't call them Tammuz and different Babylonian names. We don't weep for Tammuz here, okay? So 12 to 12, 30. So you just keep counting 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300. Again, this is assuming, let's just go back. There's only 12 months in a year. And then you start over again with the first month of Abib, 270, 300, 330, 360, 390, and then boom, right? So the problem with this calendar theory of exactly 30 days in a month, okay? Remember, that's what we're scrutinizing together, is by the time you get to the year 6 of the captivity, the 6th month, 14 months, 420 days have elapsed, and only 413 days passed by when Ezekiel was sitting in his house. So he was supposed to be lying down for 430 days. But basically, if you go off of this calendar theory, there's not enough time for Ezekiel to have fulfilled the lying down on his right and his left sides. So basically, by looking at it this way with the 360-day flat rate count, it's just not enough time. It ends too quickly. And Ezekiel would basically be sitting in his house. Let's go look at it again, because I feel like I'm losing. I can just feel it in my spirit that I'm losing. I don't want to lose you. Remember, at the very end, 6th year, 6th month, 5th day of the month, he's sitting in his house with the elders of Judah. With the solar calendar theory of 360-day flat rate count, 30 days in a month, 12 months in a year, there's just not enough time for him to actually fulfill this, okay? So that's the main point I'm driving home with that, because 14 months, 420 days have elapsed, and only 413 days passed by when Ezekiel was sitting in his house. So he's supposed to be there for, 17 more days. It's just not, it doesn't work. Again, what I'm basically proving to you already is you got to add maybe a 13th month. But, for the sake of clarity, we could even look at the Enoch solar calendar. We could look at 364 days. Again, it's all we're doing is adding 4 more days, basically, right? It's just not enough time. The year goes by too fast. 12 months in a year isn't enough time. Let me go back to it. He'd be sitting in his house too soon. He wouldn't have enough time to fulfill the 430 days. Okay. Again, go to ponderscripture.org, go to Torah calendar. You guys will be able to see what I'm seeing. I know it's I feel like it's going over people's heads, but it's fine. I feel like hopefully it's not you. Again, Enoch calendar, same thing. It's very similar. And so is the Gregorian solar calendar, even though we add just that extra, from 360 to 364 to 365 days per year. If we only have 12 months in a year, what you're going to find each and every single time is there's just not enough to work with. There's just not enough time to work with. So I'm just going to skip to the lunar calendar that I'm telling you. This is the way we got to look at it. You're going to see how this is going to make a whole lot more sense. Okay. Because there are other theories we can look at. There are other ways of looking at it. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of belaboring the point. But I just want to go to the actual 13th month. Like, how do you study, a counterfeit dollar bill or a counterfeit $100 bill, I should say, right? You always look at the real one. So let's just look at actually what it looks like when you do consider a 13th month time period. Okay. And this is mathematically, it doesn't really make sense mathematically. I'm trying to depict it for you here, but you really have to count. That's really the only way to do it. With a biblical lunar calendar, we understand, okay, there's either 12 or 13 months, depending on the readiness of the barley. We declare the year. We know that in a lunar cycle, there's approximately 29.533 days in a month. You could calculate it, but you kind of missed the point. The only way to really visualize it and see it is to just go through and actually do the math. So not do the math, just actually look at it on a calendar. And so again, if we do this, if we look at the 5th year with the 13th month, what they're calling, Larry is calling a luni solar calendar. That's what I would call the biblical calendar. So Tammuz, day 12, again, that's when he sat astonished. The very next day at the earliest, he began the 430-day count, which he could. Remember, he did have to prepare all the food somehow. Like, he didn't necessarily have to cook it, right? He's going to cook it later, but he had to have had time to get fuel, bread, all the ingredients, and he had to, get ready for the next 430 days where he's going to be bound. 20 shekels by weight, remember? So it was a specific allotment, a ration, food ration. So you count from Tammuz, day 12, you count basically those 30 days to 13, and then you can count, okay, let's just, I think he estimates here, right? 30 days per month, even though technically it's 29.5. Sometimes you're going to have a 29-day month. Sometimes you're going to have a 30-day month. But if we even just count 30 days, when we understand that there's a 13th month, so 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, and you just look at, you actually have to go through it, okay? This is going to be going over your head if you don't actually, one by one count the days. 270, 300, 330, 360. Oh, wait, where's our 13th? Okay, so if you add what's called an Adar bet, this is where we get that extra month, right? This is where we get the extra days, and you'll see that it makes a heck of a lot more sense. In fact, it's really the only way Ezekiel could have honored everything, and the timeline fits the way that the Bible shows us from Ezekiel chapters 1-8, is if you add this 13th month here. So 270 days, 300 days, 330, 360, 390 in the 4th month. Then you get to the 5th month, 420 days. And it says right here, yes, 14 months have elapsed, which is what basically we're told, right? From the 5th year to the 6th, 14 months. And there's actually enough time here. There's actually enough time. So this is what I'm just going to read on screen. I know it's kind of small. On this date, according to Ezekiel 8:1, Ezekiel was sitting in his house visiting with the elders of Judah. He had completed lying on both sides 1 week earlier. And notice, when you actually take the time to count this, right? Realistically, So the count had already been completed on the 5th month, the 18th day, or no, the 28th day of the 5th month. Well, we know that, again, a Hebrew lunar calendar, looking for the sighted moon, looking for that Rosh Chodesh every single month, we understand, oh, it can't end on 28, so 29, maybe it was a 30-day month, I don't know. But we could even presume that he had 1 to 2 days to prepare all the food to go buy it. And, obviously God, provided for him and he had money. He could just go to a farmer and get everything he needed in bulk. That's a day, that's a 1-day thing. You can get all the food in 1 day. Just go to the nearest mill, granary, and just stock up. It would be a few sacks for one person of food, several sacks of, the different things, depending on the shekels by weight. He could get that all ready in 1 day, get his donkeys, load up the carts, come back to his house, stash it all up. So he even has an extra day or so to even prepare all the food. Actually, what am I thinking? Sorry, guys. He had an extra, so from the 28, 29, he had an extra maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, like you said, a week. Sorry, I don't know why I keep having these kind of like brain moments here, or my brain skipping beats here. He had at least 7 days to prepare the food. That is realistic. That makes a lot of sense. The other calendars go by too quickly. They go by too fast because they don't account for, they don't have any sort of leeway. There's no provision for a 13th month in the other calendar systems. This is the only way that Ezekiel would have enough time to prepare the food, a week, even a whole week, from the 28th of the 5th month to the 6th month, the 5th day of the 6th month, up to 7 days. That makes a heck of a lot more sense. I would even argue he could get everything ready in 1 day, have it all stashed up in his house. But this calendar system, this system of counting actually gives Ezekiel 7 complete days to get everything ready. Okay. So sorry about so that will make more sense if you actually go through and complete the exercise. Doing the math, it'll help you a little bit, but you really got to go use something like TorahCalendar.com, and you'll see that these other calendars, whether it's the 360-day, 364-day of the Enoch or the 365 of the Gregorian, they're just too fast. You have to have an extra month for the timeline to fit perfectly. Does that make sense, my friends? And if you have to, go to it. Let me share the link. I'll share it right here. Go to ponderingscripture.org. Throw that in the chat. Go to TorahCalendar.com. I believe it's a .com, isn't it? Yes, it is. TorahCalendar.com. And you'll be able to check these resources out that these pioneers of the ancient path have already laid before us. So big shout out to Sighted Moon was where I found this work. So shout out to Sighted Moon. Shout out to ponderingscripture.org with Larry and his people over there. And Torah Calendar is an excellent resource that helps us to actually look back in time and to be able to dissect things on a granular level. These are excellent resources, and I commend all these people for their hard work. Yeah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, so that's really all there is to it. Hopefully that helps. And my goodness, I just want to say this one more time. If you guys missed some of the lives that happened earlier this week, I feel like one of the biggest lives of the channel as far as sense of urgency was talking about this Super Baal that's happening tomorrow. It's coinciding with a new moon. It's coinciding with 57 days out from not a blood moon, but a solar eclipse. It's coinciding with a lot of strange events. I don't know, guys. Keep your eyes open. And Shabbat Shalom to all you guys. Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad that made sense. I know I skipped. I kind of it was a little confusing at times, but yes, Ezekiel had at least a week to get the food ready and everything according to a 13th month calendar system, which is exactly what the lunar calendar shows us. Stacy, appreciate the feedback. Stacy says lunar calendar definitely makes more sense. And there's really all there is to it, my friends. Romans 10:13. I can't find anyone but you guys to discuss this info with. Most are lost. I'm sorry to hear that, brother. There are definitely good people out there. It's just a matter of finding them. They do exist. I know even Elijah in his day was like, man, I'm the only one that's left, Father. And he's like, nah, I got 700. They haven't bowed the knee to Baal. I think it was 7,000. I have reserved for myself 7,000 who have not bowed the knee to Baal. But let me tell you something, guys. All of America is going to be bowing down that knee to Baal, generally speaking, tomorrow. And I don't think God is going to let them get away with it this year. I don't think he's going to let them get away with it. But you tell me. You tell me. All right. Appreciate you guys. Rest up. Be blessed. I will catch you very, very soon. I'm always live Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Of course, yesterday was really crazy. I mean, I know the West Coast got hit up with some massive storms like I did, and it just knocked me out, guys. I have vehicles that are down for maintenance. I have all kinds of stuff because we just got messed up with that weather. So stay warm, stay safe. If you are in North America, it's chilly, so make sure you bundle up and just rest today, guys. Rest today. Meditate on the things that God is showing us from Ezekiel, and the fact that even though this is a very interesting about the Bible, it doesn't tell us straight up, right? 13 months. But we can kind of understand, 13 tribes, Manasseh. 13 is an important concept. 13 is sometimes added, and here's why. And hopefully you've understood that when we understand the new moon and the barley, we can be very confident that God would like for us to observe his calendar when the offerings are ready, not when an equinox is ready or any of these other things that don't really matter. I didn't really have time to go into the equinox stuff today. I do apologize. I was going to get you some information about equinoxes, but again, it's just something that's a tradition of men lately. Equinoxes have nothing to do with barley and a sighted moon. Okay, so if anybody's telling you have to wait for an equinox to declare the new year, that they just invented that because people like to look for things that don't exist to understand the scriptures rather than just letting the scriptures speak for themselves. It's sad, but it is true, and it happens far too often. So God bless you guys. I will see you very soon. Be blessed. We'll be in touch. And if I have to, I'll do an emergency live tomorrow if something crazy happens. But other than that, I'll see you Monday. God bless you.
Yeah.